Edward Hanson believed life was a transaction. Work hard, earn more, control outcomes. That belief had made him one of the wealthiest ranch owners on the frontier. His land stretched beyond the horizon, cattle moved at his command, and men twice his age asked for his approval before speaking. But none of that mattered inside his house. The silence there was heavy, almost accusing. It clung to the walls, the furniture, the long dining table where 3 chairs were always empty at once. His wife, Margaret, had died 4 years earlier during childbirth complications. The child had not survived. Something in Edward had closed that day, like a door locked from the inside. His daughters, Emma and Lily, had survived, but barely, it seemed. Emma, 9, was observant and quiet, carrying a seriousness far beyond her age. Lily, 7, still tried to smile, but her laughter never lasted long. They had everything except what they needed most. One evening, after watching them eat in silence, Edward spoke abruptly. "You need a mother." The girls looked up, startled. "I will marry again," he continued. "You can have anything you want." Anything. He meant dresses, horses, a bigger house. That was how his mind worked. The following week, women from town arrived. Well-dressed, polite, eager. They laughed too loudly, complimented the ranch, touched Edward's arm as if it already belonged to them. Edward watched his daughters carefully. Their faces remained blank. Finally, he said the words that would change everything. "Pick anything you want," he told them. "I'll make it happen." Emma looked at Lily. Lily nodded. "We want that Apache woman as our mom," Emma said. Edward felt the air leave the room. At first, Edward thought he'd misheard. "Who?" he asked. "The woman by the river," Lily said softly. "The one who sings." Edward knew exactly who they meant. Everyone did. Her name was Naya, an Apache woman who lived alone near the bend of the river, just beyond the edge of town. She sold herbs, mended clothes, and kept to herself. Some called her strange, others called her dangerous. No one invited her anywhere. "She smiles with her eyes," Lily added. "Mama used to do that." Edward stood up so suddenly his chair fell backward. "That's not an option," he said. His voice was sharp, final. "Choose something else." The girls said nothing. They simply went to their room and closed the door. That night, Edward heard crying. Real crying, the kind that tears out of the chest. It was the first time since Margaret's death. He stood in the hallway, unable to move, memories flooding back, Margaret humming while brushing the girl's hair, her warmth, her gentless. He realized, with sudden clarity, that he had no idea how to give that. At dawn, he saddled his horse and rode toward the river. Naya was kneeling by the water, washing fabric against a stone. She didn't look surprised when Edward approached. She didn't bow or step back. "My daughters want you," Edward sighed, the words sounding strange even to himself. "They want you to be their mother." Naya studied him for a long moment. Her gaze was calm, but there was depth there, loss, endurance, strength. "Children feel truth," she said quietly. "More than adults. I can offer you safety. A home. Money." Edward sighed, instinctively turning it into an offer. She shook her head. "I don't belong to offers." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the river. Finally, she spoke again. "I will come, but not as something you own. And if your daughters are ever hurt by this choice, I will leave." Edward agreed before fear could stop him. When Naya arrived at the ranch, the town erupted. Whispers followed her everywhere, but the girls ran to her without hesitation, wrapping their arms around her waist. For the first time in years, Edward heard laughter echo through his house. The changes were slow but undeniable. Naya cooked simple meals and taught the girls stories from her people. She braided their hair and sang them to sleep. Nightmares stopped. Smiles returned. Edward watched from a distance, unsure of his place. He noticed how Naya spoke to the girls, not commanding, not indulgent, but present. Fully present. When illness spread through the town, it was Naya who helped the sick, despite the same people having turned their backs on her for years. Edward saw men who once mocked her now bow their heads in gratitude. One evening, he found her sitting alone on the porch. "I don't understand how you do it," he said. "They trust you completely." She looked at him. "Because I listen." That night, Edward realized something painful and true. He had spent years providing, but never truly seeing his children. Winter came hard and early. A fever swept through the ranch, taking Lily with it. For days, she burned with heat, drifting in and out of consciousness. Edward sat helplessly by her bed while Naya worked tirelessly, refusing to rest. On the fourth night, Lily's breathing steadied. When she opened her eyes, she reached for Naya. "Mama," she whispered. Edward broke. He stepped outside, snow falling silently around him, and cried for the first time since Margaret died, not from loss, but from gratitude. Weeks later, when the town gathered for spring, Edward stood beside Naya, no longer as a man making offers, but as one who had learned humility. "I told my daughters to pick anything they wanted," he said softly. "I didn't know they would choose what would save us all." Naya took his hand. Not as a possession, not as a prize, but as a choice. And in that moment, Edward finally understood. Love was never something to be claimed. It was something given, freely, bravely, and forever. Years passed, quietly and steadily, the way real healing always does. The ranch no longer felt like a fortress built to keep the world out. It became a place people came to, for work, for shelter, for help. Edward noticed it one evening as he stood by the fence, watching Emma teach younger children how to ride. Lily sat nearby, braiding flowers into Naya's hair, laughing freely, without hesitation or fear. That sound still startled him sometimes. Laughter had once felt like a stranger in this place. Edward had changed in ways he never would have believed possible. He listened now, he waited, he learned when to be silent. Power no longer came from ownership or command, but from presence. From staying. The town had changed too. Slowly at first, then all at once. Naya was no longer spoken of in whispers. She was sought out, respected, trusted. Not because she demanded it, but because she gave without keeping count. When people thanked her, she simply nodded, as if kindness were the most natural thing in the world. One night, years after that first impossible request, Edward sat with his daughters by the fire. "Do you remember what I said to you?" he asked gently. Emma smiled. "You told us to pick anything we wanted. And you chose her," he said, looking at Naya. Lily leaned against his side. "We chose love," she said simply. Edward felt his chest tighten, not with pain this time, but with something full and warm. Later, when the house was quiet, Edward stood beside Naya on the porch, the same place where he once admitted he didn't know how to love properly. "I thought giving you a home meant I was saving you," he said softly. "But you saved us." Naya looked at him, her eyes steady and kind. "No," she replied, "your daughters did. They were brave enough to ask for what they needed." Edward nodded, finally understanding the truth that had taken him a lifetime to learn. That night, as the wind moved gently through the land, the ranch felt complete. Not because it was owned, but because it was shared.